Dear friends, have you ever stood across from a woman, your partner, your date, your wife, and felt like you were offering her the world, yet somehow something essential was missing? You worked hard, you provided, you planned, and still there was a silence in her eyes, a quiet hunger you couldn't name. She smiled, but it didn't reach her soul, and you wondered, what does she want? Let me tell you something most men never hear. Women don't crave money the way the world tells you they do. They crave something more intoxicating than diamonds, more addictive than vacations, more lasting than luxury. They crave presence, power, not over you, but with you. They long to be seen, not managed, felt, not purchased. Because a woman doesn't stay for your wallet. She stays for the way your energy wraps around her in silence. She stays for the way your presence makes her feel like the only woman in a crowded room. She stays for the mystery that you unlock when you lead not with money, but with your masculine spirit in alignment. If you've ever felt like you're giving everything and still losing her, this conversation is for you. Let's go beyond the bank account. Let's step into the realm of what really holds her heart. Let's begin with something deeply human. When a woman enters a room, she's not just noticing the color of the walls or the fragrance in the air. She's sensing energy, your energy. She notices the tone behind your words, the weight behind your silence, the way you greet her without saying a thing. This isn't mystery. This is intuition, hers, and the mistake many men make is thinking that what she's evaluating is the size of your paycheck. But it's not, it's the size of your presence. You see, money buys options, it brings comfort, security. And yes, for many women it's attractive when a man can create stability, but that is just the surface. It is not what reaches her core, because if money could make a woman feel desired, adored, or emotionally safe, every wealthy man would be in a fulfilling relationship. And we both know that's not the case. What she longs for secretly, often even unconsciously, is your depth, your rootedness, your capacity to hold space for her emotions without rushing to fix them. She wants to feel that when she speaks, you're not just hearing her, you're attuning. Your body is still, your phone is nowhere near, your eyes don't wander, you're there, right there with her. Not because you want something, but because you're already full. Presence is not silence. Presence is the kind of quiet that vibrates with interest. And when a woman feels that kind of attention, something in her softens, her guard lowers. She doesn't need to prove, perform, or pretend. She can just be. That's when love becomes real, and yet so many men bypass this, not because they're bad, but because they've been taught that success is measured in status, in earnings, in what you can do rather than how you can be. So they hustle, they provide, they work late, they bring home gifts, and still the connection fades. The conversations dry out, the intimacy becomes routine or disappears altogether, and they don't understand why. They think, I'm doing everything right. Why isn't she happy? Because the truth is, you may be doing all the right things, but missing the one thing that makes her feel alive in your presence. Your attention is fractured, your spirit is tired, your touch is mechanical, and your gaze, once electric, now flickers like a bulb waiting to die. She doesn't want your money, she wants you to look at her like she's art again. Let's pause here for a moment. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you looked at the woman in your life with wonder, not desire? Not routine affection, but wonder, that spark of curiosity that says, I'm still learning you, I'm still listening. If you can't remember, don't shame yourself. That doesn't help anyone, just let it wake you up, because this is your call back to presence. The second thing closely tied to presence is emotional leadership. Not dominance, not control. Leadership, you see. Women are not drawn to men who are emotionally unavailable. They are drawn to men who are emotionally anchored. That's a very different thing. She doesn't want you to cry at every corner, nor does she want you to be a stone wall. What pulls her in, what makes her lean closer, is your ability to feel and hold, to be both sensitive and solid. Imagine her storming into the room after a difficult day, venting about a colleague who dismissed her, about a friend who betrayed her trust. And you, without minimizing her or rushing to fix her, simply breathe with her. You nod, you mirror her pain, you say, that must have felt awful, you name it. You honor it, and in doing so, you give her something money never can, the sense that her emotions are safe with you. Women love emotional safety more than luxury, because emotional safety is what allows her to express without fear of being judged, belittled, or shut down. And when a woman feels that something sacred happens, she begins to trust not just you, but herself in your presence. That's when she becomes radiant, playful, sensual, because she no longer has to hold everything on her own. And here's where many men feel confused. They wonder, but what if I don't know how to do that? That's okay. You're not expected to be perfect. You're expected to be present, and to lead emotionally, you must first lead yourself. You must become intimate with your own storms, your own shadows, your own emotional waves, because only then can you become the calm in hers. Emotional leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about creating a space where both of you can be fully human, messy, beautiful, evolving, and still feel deeply connected. Presence, emotional anchoring. Already we are far from money. Already we are in the terrain where love either lives or dies. I want to ask you something gently. Have you become emotionally absent in your relationship, even though you are physically and financially present? You don't need to answer aloud, but your body knows, your spirit knows. And if you feel a little ache rising as I speak, maybe even a quiet grief, let that be your invitation. Not to beat yourself up, but to return, to show up not with more gifts or elaborate plans, but with your soul. Because when a woman feels you emotionally, when she senses that your strength is not just in your muscles, but in your maturity, your capacity to listen, your ability to hold space for her feelings, without flinching, she will love you in ways that no dollar could ever buy, not because you earned it, but because you showed up. And that, my dear friends, is something every man can learn, not by impressing her, but by being real with her. And that begins with being real with yourself. Sometimes the reason she pulls away isn't because she stopped loving you. It's because she stopped feeling felt by you. And when a woman feels invisible, no amount of effort, no polished date night, no expensive gift can truly touch her heart. Because she doesn't fall in love with what you give her, she falls in love with how she feels in your presence. And one of the most potent feelings you can give her, the one she will never admit to craving, yet always respond to, is emotional mystery. Not the kind of mystery where you become distant or cold. I'm talking about the kind of inner richness that makes a woman lean in, not out, that makes her wonder what thoughts are dancing behind your silence, what depths lie beneath your steady eyes. She doesn't want to know everything about you in one sitting. She wants to discover you piece by piece, season by season. And for that to happen, you need to have something within you worth discovering. Many men lose this without even realizing. In trying so hard to please, they over-explain, they become too available, they put their entire emotional world on the table too quickly, hoping it will make her feel closer. But what it often does is flatten the mystery. It removes the intrigue, and when there's no more unfolding, there's no more seduction. You see, seduction is not about manipulation. It's about play, space, curiosity. A woman doesn't fall in love with a man who pours out his soul on the first date. She falls for the man who gives just enough for her to feel invited in, but not so much that she feels she's seen the whole movie. She wants to participate in the unraveling. She wants to earn pieces of your truth. That's what makes her feel special. And that matters more than money ever could. Because when a woman feels that she's unlocking something sacred in you, when she senses that she's touching a part of you the world doesn't get to see, that's when she falls not just for you, but for the story you're writing together. So I ask you gently, have you become too exposed, too explained, too easy to read? Not in the physical sense, but in your emotional energy. Is there anything left in you that she still wonders about? Not out of confusion, but out of desire. Mystery lives in restraint. It lives in the sacred art of pacing. Not everything must be said. Not every feeling must be immediately shared. There is beauty in letting her want to know you. Now, alongside emotional mystery, let's talk about playfulness. Playfulness is wildly underestimated. And yet, it's one of the most magnetic energies a man can carry. A woman does not stay with a man because he is perfect, because he always knows what to say, or because he has life figured out. She stays with the man who can make her feel young again, who can tease her without cruelty, who can flirt without expectation, who can bring light into the mundane when life gets serious. And it often does so many men turn into stone. Their faces become tense, their tone becomes flat. They carry the weight of responsibility, and somewhere along the way they forget how to laugh, how to play, how to look at her like they did in the beginning, with that sparkle that said, "I see you and I want you," and she notices. Because if she wanted a business partner, she'd hire one, but she chose you. She chose a man who once danced with her in the kitchen, who once whispered nonsense into her ear just to hear her laugh, who once made her feel like being with you meant coming alive. And when that playful energy dies, she mourns it, quietly but deeply. You don't need to be a clown. You don't need to tell jokes. Playfulness is not a performance, it's an attitude. It's that glimmer of mischievousness in your eye. It's knowing how to drop the armor for a moment and just be. Light, present, engaged, and what makes it so powerful is that playfulness cannot exist without safety. She will not play with a man who feels dangerous or cold, but she will light up around a man who feels both strong and soft, who can be silly without being weak, who can be spontaneous without being chaotic. That, my dear friends, is unforgettable. So now we begin to see the shape of this quiet truth. What women secretly love more than money is the emotional frequency you live in. Do you bring calm, depth, laughter, mystery, or do you bring only stress, only logic, only surface-level tasks and transactions? Because she may nod at the new car, she may smile at the gift, but if her heart is not being danced with, no luxury will be enough. Think about it. How many women have you seen walk away from wealthy men and fall in love with someone the world would call ordinary? It's not because they gave up on comfort, it's because they were starving for soul, and here's the secret most men miss. It's not about trying harder. It's about feeling more. Can you feel her when she enters the room, before she even speaks? Can you feel what's unspoken between you? Can you step out of the script and into the moment, because that, more than any romantic line or perfect gesture, is what opens her? That's what makes her remember who you were in the beginning, and who you still are beneath the noise of life. It's not about wealth, it's about warmth. It's not about what you buy, it's about what you build, in energy, intention, in emotional presence. And when you return to that energy, she returns to you, not because you reminded her of your status, but because you reminded her of your soul. There's a moment, often quiet and unseen, when a woman decides to let go. It doesn't happen with yelling, it doesn't happen with drama, it happens when she's been emotionally starving for too long. When she's been waiting to be seen, touched, remembered not physically, but energetically, and instead she's been met with a wall of performance. A wall made of good intentions but no soul. That's why today I want to talk to you about integrity. Not the public kind, not what you say you value, not what you post online, but the silent alignment between who you say you are and how you show up when no one's watching. Because one of the most powerful things a woman falls in love with secretly, deeply, enduringly, is your consistency. Your follow-through, your reliability, not in the mechanical sense, but in the emotional rhythm of your being. Do your actions match your words? Do your moods match your values? Does your presence feel stable or slippery? Women don't need a man who promises them the moon. They need a man whose yes means yes, whose no is grounded, who doesn't collapse under pressure or disappear under emotional heat. And this has nothing to do with dominance. In fact, true masculine integrity has a kind of quiet humility to it. It's not about leading because you want power. It's about leading because you've done the internal work to be trustworthy. And trust is more erotic than wealth. It's more rare, more healing, and it's what allows a woman to soften, because only when she can lean into your integrity can she let go of her own armor. When she knows that you will say what you mean and mean what you say, she doesn't have to manage you. She doesn't have to guess your promises. She doesn't have to become hard just to feel safe. She gets to relax into her femininity, not because you control her, but because you hold yourself. And I know, dear friend, this is hard sometimes, especially when life gets heavy, when the weight of responsibilities, expectations, and fears press down on your shoulders. But that's when it matters most. That's when she's watching not just what you do, but who you are in the doing. Women fall in love with who you are under pressure, not how much you earn when everything is calm, because presence without consistency is chaos, and mystery without integrity is manipulation. But when you blend emotional presence, playful energy, deep mystery, and grounded integrity, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to impress her, but because you're embodying something rare. And from that place, there's one more thing that stirs her soul in a way no gift ever can. Your vision, not just your goals, not just your career, but your inner compass. Where are you going? And why not every woman wants to be taken on a yacht, but every woman wants to feel like she's with a man who's going somewhere emotionally, spiritually, internally. She wants to feel like she's part of something bigger than routine. She wants to know that your life has a direction, a depth, a reason. Because, here's the truth, when a man lacks vision, she begins to feel lost next to him. It doesn't mean you need to be famous or rich or a CEO. It means that you have a fire within you that burns for something beyond yourself, a purpose, a mission, a direction that pulls you forward and makes you magnetic, not because of your achievements, but because of your energy. And when she senses that, when she sees that your eyes light up not only when you look at her, but when you talk about the life you're building, the man you're becoming, the mark you're here to leave, she can feel that energy. And it pulls her in, because a man with a vision gives her something to walk beside, something to build with, something to grow into. It doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you're seeking something meaningful. And in that seeking she feels inspired, not by your possessions, but by your passion. Let me say this gently, women are not looking for perfection. They're looking for aliveness. A man on fire for something real within himself, within the world, will always be more compelling than a man who simply checks all the boxes. And the tragedy is, so many men trade their vision for validation. They perform, they compare, they try to win approval from a world that doesn't even know their name. And in doing so, they forget who they are, and she can feel it. So this is your invitation, to return to your own voice, to your own fire, to your own path, not to impress her, but to inspire her. Because when a woman sees a man standing in his truth, walking in his integrity, anchored in his vision, she doesn't want to change him. She wants to support him, love him, walk beside him, not because he gave her diamonds, but because he gave her something rarer, a glimpse of what's possible. And that, dear friend, is priceless. There's a kind of intimacy that doesn't start with touch. It begins with permission. With a man who creates a space where a woman can be wild and soft, strong and sensitive, confident and confused without fearing that he will shrink away. And that's what I want to explore with you now, the kind of emotional freedom a man creates when he becomes a safe container for the full range of feminine expression. Because, dear friend, no woman wants to feel like she has to water herself down to be loved. She doesn't want to have to be the cool girl, the one who never complains, the one who's always agreeable. That's not connection. That's emotional exile. And far too many women have lived there, but when she meets a man who says, "You don't have to shrink to fit here," something inside her shifts. She begins to exhale, not just physically, but spiritually. She begins to trust that she can bring the whole of herself and still be wanted. That is what she loves more than any financial safety net, emotional sanctuary, because every woman is a wave. Some days she is calm, loving, tender. Some days she is electric, restless, unpredictable, and she wants to know, will you still be here? Will you still see her when she isn't sweet and easy, when she questions you, when she breaks down, when she loses her way? This doesn't mean accepting emotional abuse. It means understanding that a woman's emotionality is not a problem to fix. It's a universe to explore. And when you learn to ride those waves not with fear or frustration, but with curiosity and presence, she experiences something rare, emotional permission. That permission allows her to open more and more, not just to you, but to herself. And when a woman feels free to be all of herself with you, she will love you in a way that doesn't fade. Because she knows she doesn't have to perform anymore. You'd be surprised how many women leave relationships, not because they were unloved, but because they were unseen. They were loved for their smile, for their beauty, for how easy they were, but not for the parts they buried. The anger, the doubt, the dreams that didn't fit in someone else's narrative. And here's the paradox most men don't see. When you give her permission to be everything, when you love her beyond her performance, you awaken her desire for you. Not because you chased her, but because you met her in places where no one else dared to go. This is not about being her therapist. It's about being her mirror. Can you look at her in her mess and her magic and reflect back? I still choose you, I still want you, not in spite of this, but because of it. That choice is more powerful than any romantic gesture, and from that space something deeper emerges, what she secretly longs for but rarely asks for, your emotional honesty. Not your perfection, not a polished performance of what you think she wants, but your truth, your fears. Your humanity. She wants to know what moves you, what scares you, what wounds haven't healed yet. She doesn't want you to bleed all over her. But she wants to know that you have blood, that you're alive inside. Because a man who feels, a man who admits when he's hurting or unsure, a man who isn't afraid to say, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm still here with you, that man becomes unforgettable. Not weak, not needy, real. And women crave realness more than riches. Why? Because realness is rare. And because vulnerability creates reverence. When you let her into your inner world carefully, intentionally, not as a dumping ground, but as a sacred offering, she feels trusted. And that trust becomes the glue that makes her want to stay. But I know this is terrifying for many men. Especially if you were taught that emotions are dangerous, that crying makes you soft, that vulnerability makes you unmanly. Let me tell you something clearly. Vulnerability does not strip you of your masculinity. It deepens it. It's the doorway to connection, not the death of strength. And the men who understand this, who practice this, who live this, they don't chase women. They attract them not with games, but with depth. So I ask you now, what part of yourself are you hiding from her? What truth have you been afraid to speak? What part of your inner world have you guarded so tightly that even you forgot it was there? That part of you is the one she's waiting to meet, because once she sees you, Not just the provider, not just the protector, but the person. That's when love stops being transactional. That's when it becomes transformational. You become the man she doesn't just want beside her. You become the man she trusts with her whole being. Not because you bought her something, but because you gave her everything that cannot be bought. There is a moment in every relationship, quiet, subtle, when love either roots itself deeper into the body or begins to drift quietly toward absence. Not because someone changed, but because someone stopped showing up with their soul. And often what keeps a woman rooted in a man is not what he does for her, but who he becomes beside her. So now I want to take you into one of the final things that women love more than anything you could ever buy, your evolution. Not the idea of it, not the language of growth, but the practice of it. Because a woman doesn't need a man who is fully finished, perfectly healed, or emotionally enlightened. What she longs for, what she quietly aches for, is a man who is in motion, a man who doesn't resist change but leans into it, who doesn't hide behind ego but says, I want to understand myself better, I want to love more honestly, I want to break the cycles that once broke me. That kind of man is a mirror to her own desire for growth. And when she sees that you are not afraid to confront yourself, to admit your blind spots, to repair what you once avoided, that's when she stops questioning the relationship. Because now she knows you won't disappear when things get hard. You will rise, and there is nothing more attractive than that. We often talk about loyalty as staying, but loyalty is also evolving. It's asking yourself, am I still someone she can admire? Am I still someone I can admire? Because if you are no longer curious about who you're becoming, she will feel it in your touch. She will feel it in the way you kiss her like routine instead of ritual. She will feel it in the way your conversations flatten and your eyes glaze over when she speaks. And it's not because you don't love her. It's because you've gone numb to yourself, and when a man is disconnected from himself, he cannot connect with her, no matter how hard he tries. His gestures feel empty, his words feel distant, his body is there, but his essence is gone, so this is your invitation not to impress her, but to inspire yourself. Ask yourself, where am I still playing small? What parts of me have I silenced? What old pain have I buried beneath achievement, hoping she wouldn't notice? She doesn't want you to be perfect, she wants to witness your becoming. Because when she sees that you're still becoming, still opening, still learning, still doing the work to be a better man, not just for her, but for yourself, she falls in love all over again. Not with your success, but with your spirit. This, dear friend, is what creates unshakable emotional intimacy. Not sex, not money, not a romantic vacation once a year, but a daily, quiet devotion to growth, to being just 1% more honest, 1% more open, 1% more present than you were yesterday. That's what builds a love story that lasts, because now she's not just building a relationship with you. She's building a life with a man who will not stagnate, a man who won't shut down when triggered, a man who will not blame, run, or numb when it gets complicated, but who will stand in front of her and say, I see what I'm doing, I want to change it, I want to meet you here in truth. Do you realize how rare that is? Do you realize how many women are starving for that kind of partnership? Not a savior, not a self-help guru. Just a man who is awake, and awakening is not a performance, it is a quiet reckoning. It happens when you start choosing intention over reaction. When you stop outsourcing your worth to what you achieve and instead return to who you are becoming. She wants to meet him, the man beneath the man, the one who is both lion and lamb, fire and stillness, protection and openness. When you live from that place, you give her something sacred. Something no amount of financial security could ever guarantee. You give her the experience of emotional forever. Because she's not just loving who you are today, she's loving who you'll become in a year, in 5 years, in a lifetime, and she wants to know she'll still be learning you, discovering you, unfolding with you even after the wrinkles come. That's not romance, that's reverence, and women revere men who are brave enough to grow, not to become someone else, but to become more whole. So if you've been asking why the spark faded, why she's quiet now, why she looks at you like something's missing, don't ask what she wants. Ask what you've stopped becoming, because that is where love lives or dies, and when you return to your evolution, she will return to you. There's something you need to know, something rarely spoken, but always felt. Most women will never ask for these things out loud. Not because they don't want them, but because they've learned that most men don't listen for what isn't said. They will ask for your time, they will smile when you offer your help, they will accept the flowers, the trips, the dinners. But inside, quietly, they are craving something else. A moment where your eyes meet hers and she feels completely seen. A kiss that doesn't just land on her lips, but reaches the girl inside her who stopped believing she was worth cherishing. A conversation where your words come not from a place of strategy or seduction, but from stillness, from soul. What women love more than money isn't complicated. It's presence that feels like devotion, integrity that feels like safety, playfulness that feels like permission, mystery that keeps her curious, growth that keeps her inspired, and emotional leadership that makes her feel like she's not walking alone. This is what turns a woman's body warm, her heart soft, and her spirit loyal, not because she's been given everything, but because she's been met fully. And here's what no one tells you. You already have this in you, not outside, not in your job title, not in your bank account, in you. But maybe it's been buried under the noise of performance, or shut down after years of rejection, or dulled by a world that only measures men by what they earn, not by who they become. So you forgot the power of your presence. You lost the fire of your vision. You closed the doors on your softness, your play, your honesty. You started surviving instead of loving. And now you're here not because you failed, but because something in you remembers. Something in you is still alive, still longing, still listening. And maybe, just maybe, she's been waiting for that man to return, not the man who buys more, but the man who brings more of himself. You see, what we crave isn't more romance, it's more reality. We want relationships that feel true, not curated. We want love that breathes, that stretches, that asks us to rise not just for each other, but with each other. This isn't about impressing her. This is about inviting her to feel, to trust, to follow you not because she's dependent, but because your leadership is emotional, not just logistical. To stand beside you not because you promised her security, but because your spirit feels like home. So ask yourself, are you still performing, or are you ready to be? Are you willing to show up not just as the man who does, but the man who feels? Because the men who dare to feel, who dare to stay open when it would be easier to shut down, who lean in when it would be easier to walk away, those men are unforgettable. Those men become legends in the heart of a woman, not for what they gave, but for how they made her feel. And if you're ready, if you're willing, then let this be the moment you come home, not just to her, but to yourself. She doesn't need more diamonds. She needs the man who remembers he is already gold.